everybody is born with a little something extra, and sometimes they just have to find it. A little something extra is that superpower that every single one of us has inside that motivates us and drives our passion and makes us do the things that we do.
We're all on the same team. Let's think about how we can make that team as inclusive as we can.
For those of you listening to our podcast right now, you can also check out our video podcast at alittlesomethingextrapodcast.org.
Hey, y'all! We are back in New Orleans at the National Down Syndrome Congress Convention, and we are here with somebody I've wanted to talk to for a long time. He's amazing. One thing that makes me love him so much is that he is a sibling. He has a sister with Down syndrome, but he's an amazing doctor who is fighting for individuals with Down syndrome, and he's got a new platform and all kinds of cool stuff going on, and he talks and speaks at a lot of Gigi's events, and that's why I wanted him here today, and I'm so excited to be at the table at a little something extra with Brian Skotko, Dr. Brian Skotko, I should say.
Thank you, Dad. And isn't it great to be back in person
Yes!
after this long pandemic? We
Yes.
could see each other. There's such an energy here at this conference.
So
It
awesome.
just feeds us in so many ways. So it's really great to be here. And thank you for having me on the show.
We're so glad to have you. So what I would love is for you to tell us a little bit about yourself, what you've been doing in your life and what you've been doing for Down syndrome.
Sure. Well, I'm lucky enough to be the director of the Down syndrome program at Massachusetts General Hospital.
That's awesome.
And it's there my colleagues and I see about 600 patients with Down syndrome of all ages. So I'm privileged enough to be their doctor. But I also know that we have 71 of these specialty clinics. But if you take us all together, we could only serve at maximum 5% of the people with Down syndrome in the United States.
Right? I literally have goosebumps on my legs. Like, that needs to change.
It needs to, and it's really hard to run these clinics because they're not financially sustainable.
Yeah.
And one of those people who doesn't have access to a Down syndrome specialty clinic is my own adult sister who lives in Cleveland, and it's more than 2 hours for her to get to the nearest Down syndrome clinic.
Wow.
So we were thinking, what could we do? How do we take our knowledge and be able to democratize healthcare? So we're really excited. After 3 years, we have now created a new online platform called Down Syndrome Clinic to You. It's available in English and Spanish. No matter where you are in this world, if you could access the internet, we will come to you. So no longer do you need to make expensive visits to these specialty clinics. We are going to bring the information to you.
That's amazing. So walk us through how does that
How the
work?
platform works.
Yeah. So if you are a caregiver out there, if you have any questions, if you're like, what is the healthcare I need to give for my loved one with Down syndrome? Or I have a medical question, there's a behavior that's going on, or how do I access the best supports for siblings, or how do I prepare for the future if my loved one with Down syndrome wants to learn to take public transportation on their own? All of those life questions and wellness questions that we answer in person, we have now put into this platform. So you simply go online, you answer some questions, mobile optimized, so you do it on your phone, your iPad, your computer. Once you get through the intake and you press submit, you instantly get your own curated checklist of everything that's customized for your loved one with Down syndrome. And then we've also created a companion document so you could take to the primary care doctor visit, because we want to turn the primary care doctors into the Down syndrome specialists.
Totally. Oh my gosh.
Because that's really the only way that you're actually going to be able to scale it out on this level where you can actually have, because I feel like after we've had Brian Chicoine, if you've met Brian before on the podcast, incredible.
And he helped us create Down Syndrome Clinic to You as well.
Yeah,
Brian,
I'm sure he has,
on it. Yeah.
That is awesome.
The amount of experience that he's had in the Down syndrome community when it comes to Down syndrome healthcare is, next level. So I'm sure that the amount of input that he put into it, but that's what he's always said too, is that there's just no way to, and especially once you're going through med school, all these doctors don't necessarily get that much information on what Down syndrome is and how to properly, explain that diagnosis to people, and then the proper ways to just, live with Down syndrome and being able to help them.
It's a population of people that have a different chromosome makeup. You know what I mean? Not everything is the same. Not everything that they do is the same. Our programs, our GG Fit program is geared to the individual with Down syndrome.
Yeah.
It addresses the low muscle tone, the joint laxity, the vestibular system. All of that is addressed in that program because that's how their bodies are. And some of the exercises that we do and that we tell them to do in the workout classes and everything else, not our GG Fit, but just in the world, are actually hurting them because their bodies are different. So I think That's amazing.
It really is incredible. And there's
Yeah.
not enough Dr. Chicoines out there to replicate. We wish there were.
Oh my gosh,
So
yeah.
how do we scale up? And you're right, we do have a medical playbook for people with Down syndrome, but most primary care doctors don't know it. It's unreasonable and impractical to think they could stay up to date on everything. So we're going to make it easy for them.
Oh my
Absolutely.
gosh. Well, that is awesome. So what is it? Is there a web?
Yeah, so if you go to dsc2u.org, downsyndromeclinictoyou.org, people
Love
could
it.
sign up English and Spanish, available where you are. And the good thing is we have a team of experts, Dr. Chicoine included,
Yep.
that are constantly updating it. So
Awesome.
when you go to that system, you know you're getting the most up-to-date information about Down syndrome. So as I go throughout this conference and we learn more things, we feed it into the program.
That is beyond cool. That is awesome.
So Brian, so then how did you kind of get into the medical field when it comes to Down syndrome specifically? I know that you have a sister with Down syndrome, but I mean, like, it's obviously kind of a niche field to get into because there's only so many people in the world with Down syndrome. So like, what's that track like when you're getting to where you are now?
Well, Franco, like you, it was being a brother that brought me into it.
Absolutely.
So my very
Yep.
first role as an advocate is they invited me to a National Down Syndrome Congress convention years ago to run the Brothers and Sisters Workshop. And I
Love
got
that.
to do it with my colleague at the time. And it was there that I really realized that so many brothers and sisters like us have real questions, and we love our individuals and our loved ones with Down syndrome,
Absolutely.
but we also have questions. And so it was here in this convention that I really grew up professionally. And then as I went throughout my career and then went to medical school and I went to graduate school, I kind of reinvented myself, but there's always a role to play in the Down syndrome community.
Totally.
So I'm fortunate, I'm giving one of my original presentations that I gave 20 plus years ago this Sunday at this convention
Oh,
on
get out.
sibling
Really?
stuff. So
That's
even if I
awesome.
do all this doctor stuff, being a sibling at the end of the day is what grounds me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And how old is your sister?
She's 41 now.
Oh my
She
gosh.
still runs the household, as you can imagine.
You
You
understand.
understand. You understand.
Yeah. Oh, we understand that for sure.
And still keeps me calibrated to this day. You know, when life becomes crazy, when you're focusing on the wrong things, Kristin just reminds us all what is this all about, and that really is important.
100%. Every single day, right?
It's true. It's true.
That's where all that gratitude comes from in life. Like I'm so full of gratitude. I think God was testing me more with patience because that was something that I truly don't have and really have had to learn to have patience, even when it comes to trying to get out of the house and getting your shoes on and, just giving that extra little bit of time and realizing people sometimes need that extra little bit of time. Yeah.
You know, of all the research we've done on families, moms, dads, brothers and sisters, and people with Down syndrome themselves say life is so much distinctively better when someone has an extra chromosome in your life.
Yep.
And it's a matter of tapping into those values, recognizing them, reflecting on them, and realizing we are very lucky in so many ways.
So blessed. I like I said, I couldn't have made him the man he's grown up to be today without her. I would love to take
absolutely
credit
not.
for it, but she was a big piece in who all of my kids are.
Well, that's
today.
like one, and I've been saying this all weekend, just being here, because this is my first National Down Syndrome conference that I've been at. And just like being here, I keep saying, like, I wish the whole world, I wish like the population of individuals with Down syndrome was like 1 in 4 people. Just because I feel like every person you walk past is just saying hello to you, being so kind, and just giving you that smile. And that's just kind of the world that I want to live in that world of like, just like so much, just, it's like a little community when you're being here. And everyone just wants to talk to each other and be one with each other. And I was kind of curious as to, and I kind of asked this to a lot of different people that are siblings, and I think it's also valuable considering you're a doctor that studies so much with Down syndrome, is like, do you think that there's a specific reason why individuals with Down syndrome are just like the nicest people out there? I mean, I think because, there's so much in society that's kind of working against them, but at the same time, they keep that positivity and that love towards people. Is there anything in your experience that kind of makes you
It's such
think
a great
that?
question. I think society focuses a lot on IQ, intellectual quotient.
Yeah.
But equally important is EQ, or emotional quotient.
Yes.
And people with Down syndrome have such a high level of emotional quotient. They are the ones who can recognize that we're not having a good day, even before we recognize we're not having a good day, right?
Every single time.
100%.
They're the ones that just know how
They
to
read
place
it
a
all.
hand or a shoulder or whatever to make us like the emotional quotient is really very fine-tuned.
Yeah.
And the 21st chromosome has a lot of genes on it, and there are probably genes that encode all sorts of things we have yet to realize. But I think the coding for emotional quotient has to be on it because people with Down syndrome have it.
Absolutely. I love that EQ.
There was a
the
study
highest
done
EQs out there.
of people like us, brothers
Love
and
that.
sisters, and 88% of us say we distinctly feel our lives are better because someone with Down syndrome is in our lives.
Absolutely.
And when you ask typical brothers and sisters out there, they're all fighting and not getting along, etc. So having someone with Down syndrome in our lives as siblings is distinctively positive.
Absolutely. I think it brings the family together a lot more, too. I think you have closer families because of that, because you kind of all just gather around that person because you want to take care of them. And then with that, it kind of allows you all to take care of each other.
Now, I don't want to take away the fact that we still have fights. We still there are still like crabby this and this, and we'll dig our heels in.
Yes.
But there's as much normalcy as there, but it's not to take away the specialness that's in there as well.
That love.
Absolutely. That love is definitely there.
Right?
Oh, Gigi's got a question.
Sorry. That's good. Oh, what do you do with sorry.
You take your time.
But what do you do for your doctor?
Great question. So I am a geneticist, which means I'm a doctor who takes a look at chromosomes or genes, which is what builds our bodies. So it's a great question. So I'm there when babies are first diagnosed with Down syndrome, and I get to talk to their parents and talk about the life journey. And then I'm also a doctor who takes care of people with Down syndrome with my team from when they're little babies all the way until they're all grown up. But I can't do it alone. So I work with social workers. These are people who help with resources. I work with nutritionists who help us eat better, work with physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists. So in person, I'm really a part of a big team that really tries to make sure nothing gets missed to maximize the health of people with Down syndrome. Great question.
That is a good question. And I have a question.
Oh boy.
Sorry. When I think about that, we have so many new babies across all of our Playhouse networks that come in and tell us some horror stories of things that their geneticist or doctors has said to them. And when I hear geneticist, all I think about is this one geneticist when a family said that they wouldn't terminate the pregnancy. His literal exact words was, "I don't expect my dumb dog to come in from out of the rain. What do you expect this child to do?" That's out of the words of a doctor. You know what I mean? Recently, we just had another family that had a prenatal diagnosis, and they were told that their child with Down syndrome was going to be born with no nose, his intestines born on the outside of his body, and that they had 2 weeks to make a decision. Like, these are things, that baby was born less than 2 months later with perfect intestines and a perfect little nose. And so sometimes I think that unbelievable doctors like you are out there making it good, but these other doctors that are out there saying these things and doing these things, like, what can we do to combat that? Because even like in our Catholic hospitals, these things are being said because they're in a network, so they're allowed to have their opinion, and their opinion is our kids don't belong here.
It's so painful to hear these stories, and it's unacceptable, quite frankly, for the news to be delivered that way. And I have to say, there's a lot of research that's demonstrated on how to practice the art of medicine. How do you deliver that diagnosis of Down syndrome? So the playbook is out there, and we've learned from mothers and fathers who've gotten it how best to deliver that news. It's all about education, right? Because doctors are changing over, nurses are changing over, everyone in the newborn nursery are changing over. So how do we do it? Like everything, it's together. It's going out and it's giving those talks to doctors. But I would say to all of those parents who got a diagnosis delivered to them in an unsatisfactory way or even a rude and cruel way, try to channel that passion. Write back to your doctor maybe a year later and say, I want to let you know what I've learned. When it comes time to sending holiday cards, include them on the holiday list. Let's make sure your OBs get an updated photo every year. It's just simple, right?
We send them our calendar. We send them stuff, and especially that, a couple of them that are really adamant that our kids don't belong here. We send that all to them. But I love the idea of the parents and the family sending that on.
Continue to engage.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's awareness. Everything we do is kind of contributing to that.
Absolutely.
Does your platform that you've created, does that have information that's specifically for doctors and those geneticists that can be able to give that news more, just in a more, acceptable way where they don't have to make sure that these families are feeling like they're getting that condolence?
Yep. So Down Syndrome Clinic 2 is kind of the medical care starting at age 1. But there's a whole other part of my life where we built materials with a whole team of people to help that conversation.
Awesome.
And that's through lettercase.org. It's a group of professionals and moms and parents who've come together to work with organizations to really create that guidebook on how to deliver a diagnosis and the materials as well.
Yeah.
And so that's available right now. But it is, how do we get it out there? It's one thing to create materials, but how do we get it out there? And it takes all of us doing it. Yeah.
Agreed.
I think it takes every single person in this room and then some to make sure that we can, because I feel like that's probably the number one thing that we need to be doing right now, is making sure that primary care physicians are actually knowing exactly how to at least be able to celebrate this diagnosis, because it should still be celebrated. Obviously, there needs to be all that information that you guys are accumulating for those family members to know, because there are, the side effects of the diagnosis, but at the same time, it needs to be celebrated.
Yeah, it needs to be celebrated, and I think that's the one thing at Gigi's that, with locations all across the country, now serving families all across the world, that's the one thing we really try to get across to them, is that we don't sugarcoat. We don't say this is going to be easy, but raising any child isn't. He wasn't any easier than she was.
No, if
he gave me a lot of challenges. Yeah, he gave me a lot of challenges.
Right here we go. Now the world knows.
We won't go into that one. But the bottom line is we're going to be with them every step of the way. We do all free programming for individuals with Down syndrome. I love this medical piece. That's a really big piece of it. That between all of that, if people are out there just using all these resources together, they are going to be able to give their child an amazing life.
Yeah. And how do we synergize? Like, we all have different informational highways to the people out there, and it's a matter of kind of synergizing that together.
Yes.
Yep, for sure.
Yes. Oh, this was so. I know that he's got to go present. I know, and I'm so happy you took the time to be here. But this is called A Little Something Extra, right, Gigi? So what do you want to ask him?
What is something extra?
My something extra. I would to say, if I were to deep down inside, something that fuels me really is all of the patients with Down syndrome I get to see. They're the reminders every day of what's important, how to practice. My sister is, of course, a big inspiration, but they ground me, they calibrate me, they keep me focused. So I'm very, very lucky to have them. They're my something special.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Oh.
Present for you,
You
right
do?
here.
Yes,
Wow.
right there.
Thank you so much. Do you want me to open it now?
Sure.
Oh, there he goes. Drum roll.
Oh, with my name on it.
Yes,
Oh,
just
how
for
thoughtful
you.
of you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I will take this to my office.
Yes.
And I will enjoy it, because in Boston it gets very cold, so we're drinking tea for a lot of the year, so this will be perfect.
Well,
For
and
sure.
this was, again, made it at our Hugs and Mugs store by our individuals with Down syndrome.
Thank
So
you.
the people that are most special to you are the ones you can have your coffee with every single
Thank you.
morning.
Thank
and
you so
then
much.
One more question. If you
All
had,
right.
what was your...
If you had one message to the world, what would it be and why?
My message to the world is, if you haven't met someone with Down syndrome, go out and meet someone. They
Boom.
are the truth takers at the end of the day. That's my
That
message.
was the
Absolutely.
message. Drop the mic.
Could not agree more.
That was awesome. Well, Brian,
Yes.
thank you
guys.
so
So much
much for
fun.
being
Thank
here.
you
This
so much
was
for being here.
Enjoy the
awesome.
conference.
We're going to be listening to you talk. I'm sure that a lot of this is going to be available online, so we'll figure all that stuff out.
Yes.
And then stay tuned for another episode of A Little Something Extra with Nancy GiGi Franco. And today, our Dr. Brian Skotko. Woo!
Yes.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was fun.
Great.
That was
Thank
fun.
you so much.
Yes, thank you so much.
So if you're around,
Everybody is born with a little something extra, and sometimes they just have to find it. A little something extra is that superpower that every single one of us has inside that motivates us and drives our passion and makes us do the things that we do.
We're all on the same team. Let's think about how we can make that team as inclusive as we can.
For those of you listening to our podcast right now, you can also check out our video podcast at alittlesomethingextrapodcast.org.